Yeah, there
There.
it is. Okay. My name is Maya. I live and work in the Charlotte area. I'm a CPM here, and I got interested in the foundational concepts. I guess I met Sarita quite a few years ago when I was still a student. And just hearing her speak and hearing her passion for that really got me interested in the project that she and Rowan were doing. So when they had a session that people could attend online, I jumped on that and then went to kind of a preview weekend, and I was immediately wanting to do this in Charlotte. And my heart for, I think, midwifery in general is very much going back to the roots of what it used to be and how things, how things used to work. And wanting to dive more into that and learn more about that. And I had a very adequate education in midwifery, but there's always more. There's always more you want to learn and know and understand. And talking to midwives that have done that and having that space and that experience is what really pushed me to start hosting this and working on it in my area, because there's never going to be a time where you know everything. You need to always, and reaching out to elder midwives and midwives that have done this path for a long time. It's just really important to me. So this will be the second time that we are hosting it in Charlotte, and really wanting to expand it to continue building that community, I guess, in the area, but in the state as well. It's North Carolina has its own special brand of midwifery, and figuring out how we can support women in a place that's not very productive to working as a midwife and working in this area is also part of that, building a community of people that we can trust and know and connect with and have that. So that's one of the biggest reasons that I want to keep having this and making it available. Yeah, so I'd love to just hear you, Sarita and Rowan, talk about what got you to this idea and what your goals are for hosting and for doing this.
So first off, I want to thank you because you've been so much fun to go on this journey with from beginning and through it all. And we could really identify you as a leader in your community, someone that we wanted to continue to work with, so a natural teacher, a natural mentor. So we look forward to a continuing relationship. Well, what got me into it, other than the combination of uh, active practice through the years, as well as mentoring and teaching, was finally coming to a place and meeting Rowan, and it just sort of came together. She and I working together. It was a bit of a story, which you can hear on our website. Actually, we'll have an origin story on our website around how we began to learn what we had in common and what we could trust about each other. And really, from the beginning, we weren't even sure how to put it into words, what we were going to do. The more we do it, the better we get at actually knowing ourselves and seeing what we want to accomplish, and then being able to tell other people so that we can tell you, what we want to accomplish and what's different about how we get there. Yeah, Rowan?
Yeah. I want to echo Sarita and just the appreciation of how you have been with us since our first beta test, that little preview weekend that we invited, very select folks to. And we did immediately, recognize that you were one of us and that we wanted to continue that work. And, you've been very dedicated to your community and growing it. And you are such an amazing teacher. One of the things I love most about doing this is how much I learn from the people in the circle, and you are definitely one of those. And I think yeah, we're still just deepening the definition of what this thing that is foundational concepts that's growing as we sleep, even sometimes. And even into yesterday, like, oh, we got more language around really being able to embrace like what it is we want to offer. And you spoke to it, Maya, when you were talking just a minute ago about it's really in that roots, it's in the root system of where we come from, and by we, I mean all of women, like all the way back, how we have supported each other. And really remembering how to do that in every way with our senses, not just with the tools and the gadgets, but like really remembering like what it feels like, what it looks like, what it smells like, and what it is to be in a room together, and to actually cultivate that deepening of trust. And that's the way the wisdom gets passed, really, is by us coming together and sharing story. And yes, I still study and want to learn. I take programs online all the time because everyone has a different perspective. They all have a different experience, where they practice, what culture they come from. All of those things are just bring a different perspective to what is true no matter what.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the difference between this training and the ones that I do online, the ones that I just took another suturing course because there's always more to learn and I'm always practicing, right? All of those things. And it's like those things are pushing forward, right? Like, oh, we've learned something new, we've done this. And there's so much learning still to be with what happened before us. And I just listened to the diary of, I can't remember her name, a midwife at like the late 1700s, early 1800s, right? And it was just her diary and super basic. But what I was inspired by that book and like listening to her, just her stories of how she did midwifery at that time, she obviously had no resources that we do. And what do I take out of that? How do I learn how she did things? How are her numbers so excellent? How she cared for her mothers, how she did all of these things in what we would call a low resource setting, right? That time was extremely low resource. And I'm like, that's also where we need to learn. We need to do both of those things. It's a combination of both of those things. And I feel like that's what the foundational concepts part has really, that's where it's taken me, as there's so much still to learn with all of that too. And the combination of that root and oh, there's also other skills that we can bring into this. It's not saying one is bad and one is good. It's how do we combine these into a way that really makes us complete and, just keeps broadening our horizons instead of that. So, and I do feel like that there's so many trainings out there. There's so many things that we do that, why are we picking this one? It's because of that combination of, all right, where have we come from and what are we learning from that and how we're bringing that into where we are now.
So what I think we've realized and have been able to put into words is that there's lots of ways to learn hands-on skills, right? There's lots of ways to learn the science of reproduction. And we do that too. We have educational topics and we play with mannequins and, we do all those things. But what I think we do differently is that, and part of it's the setting that we create for this experience, is that we begin to emphasize those skills that I refer to as intangible, those things that you can't measure, those things that um, you can't assess on a test, right? Those things that define how we treat each other, how we are in relationship, how we treat ourselves, right? So really what we try to do in this immersion experience, and it's immersion because we all stay together and begin to form you learn a lot through group dynamics as you begin to form a community. And there's, we can learn from that and take that out into the world and how we relate to clients, how we relate to family, how we relate to other midwives in our community, right? So what I can see when you talk about the the cycle, the transition from the old time to now, and I'm wondering if that was a Martha Ballard
Yes,
that was their
that
daughter.
was it.
Yeah, yeah, I figured. So, the real difference, yeah, she might not have had medical resources or, things that we think of, but she knew her plants, and she understood the people in her community, and that she had the common sense to understand physiology right now, right here, as it was working in front of her eyes, rather than as it was taught to her in a model that didn't belong in that time era. Does that
Right.
make sense? So really what we are trying to do is understand how the body talks to us. That's the science, right? Like looking at it from the perspective of this is what the body's telling us it needs, or that perspective, rather than something's wrong right off the bat. And be able to then, from that perspective, and I watched you do it a couple times, kind of rethink our experiences and go, oh, that's why that happened, right? Like this new way of looking at how the process is working and what it's saying, which then makes our experiences make more sense, right?
Mhm.
And that was, for me, really fun to watch those little kind of light bulbs go off and go, oh yeah. And then that would make me go, yes, exactly. This is how this whole process fits together in a holistic way, right? So yeah, it's fun. We have fun when we do it. It does require commitment and engagement. That's why we ask people to spend the night and for us to all stay together in one house, just because it creates a dynamic that allows us to kind of immerse ourselves in this building together and experience this little kind of microcosm of the midwifery community. And maybe from these little microcosms where we can begin to listen to each other instead of kick each other, that can radiate out to fixing all of the, dysfunctional stuff that we see going on within that community. Because that's part of our goal too.
Yeah. And I think the community building is the next big part that, even the first weekend where it was a short weekend, we built community at that time. And those other people that were there, I still have community with. Like, I still connect with them. And that is something that any midwife needs. Anybody who works in birth work, you need to have that because, like you talked about with the stories, that's when those light bulb moments are, because you hear somebody else tell a story that's similar to yours into this, and then you can exchange those things, and you can't do that on your own. And you can't do that, it's even hard to do that online because it's not the same as talking to somebody face to face. It's not the same. You have a whole different dynamic with those things, and being able to reach out and connect and call and ask questions of other people is so invaluable in this work that we do. We're supporting families, but we need someone to support us. And that's the other part of this workshop, is that building that community. Even if we're not physically close to each other in a space, it's still there, and it's still something that comes out of this in a very, very clear way.
Right.
What happens in the nooks and crannies as we stay together in one house, like the story that impacts you the most may not have happened when we were together in a session. It may happen while you're loading the dishwasher with a sister. It may happen, sitting out on the deck with tea during a break. It can happen like in all of those little spaces that get filled because we are working together, like, as one unit. We're all pitching in. Sarita and I are no different than that. We are the same as everyone in that circle. We're doing dishes, we're making coffee, we're we're all participating, and those the conversation threads just keep picking up. As you know, Maya, like your lovely big farm table that we would like, the conversations just moved from the living room to around the table when we had lunch together or had breakfast, pick up from the day before. And I think that is also something that just makes this a little extra juicy.
Mhm. Right. We do try to set a container or, you know, I'll say that in just a broad way, that by that our participation in everything, including being vulnerable with what our experiences have been and, you know, what our mistakes have been and what we've learned, and, you know, our humanity, that then what we've seen can allow everybody to relax
Mhm.
a little bit, no matter what our political differences might be or what our religious or, you know, whatever differences we might have. And we certainly saw that at the beta weekend that you spent with us. There were people that had very, you know, diametrically opposed views on certain issues. Yet when we can just all be human together, those things tend to become less important, right? So that we can, you know, as we'll often say, we don't have to like each other. We just have to stop kicking each other. And once we do that, and we know we can trust and be who we are, then we actually can learn better, right? Like our brains work better at that point because we feel safer, for lack of a better way to think of it. So that's another thing that we really work towards right from the beginning, is all of us allowing ourselves to be who we are without shame. You know, like that, a lot of our approach really is to demystify and de-shame or unshame ourselves as humans and, you know, female bodies and midwives. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not easy. You know, it's not just about putting your, you know, learning where to put your hands when there's a stuck baby, or learning what to do when, you know, you want the bleeding to stop. That's all in there too. But it's also not just knowing what those skills are, knowing how to do them, knowing why you should, why you shouldn't, you know, when you can do things so that you don't have to, you know, because you don't want to have to, right? You don't want to have to use emergency skills. And so we do talk about what can we do so we don't have to, even though we will learn and practice doing them. It's that balance of not just out to learn how to do things, but learning how to be in a more balanced place so that we can more easily discern why and why not to do them and what to be ready for next. That's sort of the critical thinking perspective that we use. Yeah, it's fun and heavy and, you know, real. Yeah. We've been asked, you know, I'll throw this out there. We've been asked what to bring. You know, knowing what you know, what would you tell people to bring, Maya?
I mean, anything that you want for a sleepover. Right. Your slippers and all of those things. Yes, bring all of your midwifery things. We dived into each other's bags and talked about, you know, what equipment do we carry? What does that look like? And I think that's helpful to look at everybody's setup and to look at your setup. So yes, bring all of your tools for your trade. But other than that, it's bringing food that you want for eating as well. You know, we'll provide some of that food, breakfast and lunch, but if you want specific snacks, obviously bring those. Whatever you need. If you have a nursling and need extra things for them, bring all of that. Because it's a rented home, there's, you know, we'll just bring everything that you would need if you were going to stay at a Airbnb yourself and be comfortable, right? And be ready for settling in to a
Right.
house.
Yes, pillows, comfortable clothes,
Mhm.
you know, layers so that you can be comfortable in any temperature, that kind of thing. And some outside wear, because if we can, you know, we would go outside and I can't remember whether there's a fire pit, but we do like to, you know, be outside when we can. So
At the lake.
Adelaide.
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't remember.
Yes, well, there is. So bring your bug spray because it's June.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Bring all those- I'll bring all that. And I will add to that, if your placenta is still sitting in your freezer or you have other placentas, please
Oh.
bring them. We do have some treats with that. Like I love reading placentas, and one of the workshops that we or one of the intensives that we did on the West Coast, a lot of the participants brought their own placentas from their births that
Oh,
they
that's
had.
Mhm.
And it was so awesome to be able to read with them, like to read their placenta, and maybe that kid is 5 and they're like, oh my gosh, you just totally like described my child and that verse. So it's really fun to be able to do that. So if you do have some placentas sitting in the back of your freezer or whatever, feel free to bring them for our placenta section, or that session is pretty fun. And the more we have to look at, the better.
Right. If you can know the story, at least the broad details of the pregnancy and the birth, it's really then fun afterwards, after Rowan does her magical trick.
yeah.
It's so much fun to watch, and then watch people go, how'd you know that? You know, and the placenta always knows the story. The placenta always knows. And Rowan just knows how to speak that language.
Mhm.
It's great. Bring your placentas and your stories.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, if I think what we also said is that there's plenty of cooking space so that if people wanted to bring their food for making their own dinners as well as snacks, we would have breakfast and lunch, right, Maya? And I
Yeah.
just do remember Maya's offerings of food were quite delicious. So what her plans are.
Mhm.
Hopefully just as delicious.
Mhm.
Yeah, wholesome, very wholesome. So there's plenty of room, as I recall.
Yeah. Lots of
Yeah.
space.
Trying to think. Can you think of other questions, Maya?
I don't feel like anybody's asked me specific questions so far. I do feel like your website has a lot of good information on it, so people should definitely go to the website and dive around, for any other deep information. But
Mhm. One other question we were asked online was whether or not we would touch on NRP. And what I would answer to that is that while we won't, focus or do NRP per se, we will definitely be looking at the priorities and the physiology of that transition and what that means. So what I would hope to do is be able to touch on it in a way that helps you understand NRP even more.
Mhm.
Yeah, so just to answer that one that was asked online.
Yes.
Yeah. I will say that Maya's a wonderful host. If anybody who's watching this has any questions, I can assure you that she will accommodate reasonable needs and is one of the kindest people I've come across, I will have to say, and totally has a heart for this kind of work and for not just hosting people and feeding them, something she's done, but also for making sure people have an education that's accessible and something they can use. So I appreciate your commitment. I am looking forward to all the things that we're going to do together.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I do think. I mean, this is something that is so clear, so dear to my heart, and really just. I mean, I love this. I love getting people connected and together, and
Mhm.
yeah.
It shows in the way that you curate the whole experience. Like you've already made this very unique already in
Mhm.
you've made it stand out. And I love the way that you feed us, and and it's more than that. It's just making sure that the space is always like somehow like there's this bubble around us that you make sure is just cleared and clean, and there's always coffee on, and all of the little details are just there, as well as helping people like navigate and move through their day as they need. And I just really appreciate that. And I yeah, I'm really grateful that you're in this with us for the long haul. I'm like, wow, I think she's planning to do this annually.
I sure hope so.
So definitely don't miss out. I love the location is so central to South Carolina. I mean, to North Carolina. It's right there near High Point. So it's super accessible for all of the triad, for the mountains, for the coast. Anybody can just pop right in. So I hope people realize the special event that you're creating here.
Yeah, I'm always willing to answer questions that people have, or I've talked to a few students about trying to do a fundraiser, and I would absolutely love to help people figure out a way to make this work for them.
Excellent. I do want to encourage everyone to understand that we will need to cut off any registration by the middle of May, I believe is what we're saying. I can give you an exact date. But we do need to make sure that we get people registered if they want to come, first come, first serve in a lot of different ways, beds, registration, those kinds of things. So yeah, just a reminder.
Yep. And with that, so it's easy to apply online. There's just an apply here button that you can hit. You fill out your application, and we'll send you a registration link. So
Yeah.
I'm going to end the recording. Thanks for listening. We appreciate all of you listening.